Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our Rentals Club event about staffing. Make sure you are on mute. If you're not one of our main speakers, you get a chance to talk at the end. We have a Q&A session coming, but for the moment, please make sure you are on mute when you join us. So happy to have you all. I'm Thibault from Rentals Club. So we'll be talking about hiring, staffing, and what I love about this session today, not only do we have experts here talking about staffing, hiring expenses, how to optimize everything, but also we'll cover wrong beliefs, like things, for example, I believe about the hiring market, which are completely not true. And that's fantastic because it's also very important that these experts will bring you maybe new ways to think and then take action to solve your business issues. That's really what's key for me is really bringing you the best people to help you take action. That's what we are about. Without further ado, I will start with a few slides, but I promise that's just a few slides, and we'll go right into conversations. Let me go there. Share with you first who we have around the table. So as I said, I'm Thibault from Rentals Club. I'm the founder of the company, and we do really two things. We are short-term rental industry news websites, and we also do consulting in the industry. And I've gathered today around the table three people. So we have Steve Trover. He's a CEO of Better Talent. Kelly Odor, she's the marketing director of Bookster. And Luke Bujarski, he's the co-founder of Extenteam. But then each of them will introduce themselves right now, and I would avoid I just mumble too much. Let me give it away. Steve, how are you today? And can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm great, Thibault. Thanks for having me. My name is Steve Trover, CEO of Better Talent. I've been hiring for about 30 plus years. Kind of aging myself in businesses that I've founded. And for the last 25 years, I've been focused on the vacation rental industry. 20 of those years I spent as a vacation rental manager, managing upwards of 400 properties with 100 employees. I more recently founded Better Talent, which is a talent acquisition and optimization company focused on the vacation rental space. I am certified in talent optimization, as is my staff. And we are really focused on helping companies in the vacation rental space identify, hire, and retain the best talent. So thank you again for having me.
Fantastic. Great to have you, Steve. Kelly, how about you?
Hi there. Thank you for inviting me. Just say that up front in case I forget at the end. So my name's Kelly Odor, and I'm the marketing director of a property management software company called Bookster, and we're based here in Scotland. And I'm here really for three reasons. Being part of Bookster, so we provide and share technology that can cover tasks that take too much resource, or perhaps you've not got enough resource available. I've got 20 years of marketing, which again doesn't make me feel very young either, but we specialize in internal communications and external communications, which is there to help you manage and work with a team that you have more efficiently. And as a tech company, I'm really here because we're going through these processes right now. We're looking at how to recruit employees, whether that's remote or locally. And so, we're kind of living this moment, and I'm here to talk about the experiences we're having too.
Looking forward to hearing your experience in the tech sector. And last but not least, Luke, how are you today? And can you tell us a bit more about what you do?
Thanks, Thibault. Doing great. Steve, Kelly, everybody else, welcome. Super excited to be here. Luke, head of growth over at Extenteam. Extenteam is an outsourcer specialized in the property management industry. I'd say that 80% of our clients are short-term rental vacation home operators. So we essentially provide support across the entire life cycle of your virtual teams. That includes recruitment, or what we call as matching, but also in things like payroll, IT and help desk support, benefits, HR, and overall monitoring in terms of productivity. for your team members. So it's very much a full service model. And we've been around just over 2 years, and now we support over 80 partners throughout the United States. Me personally have been in the travel and hospitality industry for over 10 years, working with Focusrite as their director of Director of Research Europe, and then at Skift as the founding director for the research product there. And then prior to travel and hospitality, I worked for a publishing and consulting firm specialized in outsourcing in Latin American markets, so nearshoring, doing research and helping clients through that process. So excited to be here.
Thank you, Luke. And as you can see, everyone, again, thank you first of all for being here. And I'm very happy to have, brought to you like experts who, actually come from different sides of the industry and have different ways of looking at the issue of staffing and different solutions for you guys. So I'm very, very happy. And something I want to share again, so these are the few slides I promised I will be sharing, is that also these three companies also have a special offer for each of you. And let me just share that with you guys. And that's on a slide, so I don't take things wrong. Oh, there we go. All right, and so Better Talent. So with Better Talent, thanks to Steve, you will be able to get a free talent strategy session. So talking with Steve about your hiring strategy, which is fantastic. Bookster, you get 3% off a new custom website plus a free SEO starter pack. As for Extenteam, you will get a free onboarding. That's a value of $399. So to know a bit more about these offers and how to redeem these offers, you will actually be getting a follow-up email after this session. You'll be getting the recording of the session. You'll be getting the details on how to redeem these offers. But again, thank you for three of you, not only being speakers, but also giving value to my rental scale audience, which obviously is very key for me. So what we're covering today, we'll be covering a few topics, right? First one will be the causes for these labor shortages. And our three experts will be talking about this. Is it something that's temporary or structural? Second thing actually is, I was talking about wrong beliefs. So to me, remote working was something great for the industry, certainly, right, for people. But actually, experts will share with you why, in some cases, it's a good thing or a bad thing when you need to find local talents. Third topic we'll be covering is why, if you are a property manager or a vacation rental tech company, why it's become almost impossible to ask for example, deep expertise with some kind of specific PMS or channel manager, why you can't do this anymore, and what you can do about this if you do require somebody to help you out with some specific piece of tech, for example. Then we'll go about hiring people again, and how to especially identify the right people for you, right? It's so expensive to find people and to train them. You want to make sure you find people that are going to be happy and going to be staying with you. And then a big topic here, which is optimizing your expenses, right? Obviously, staffing is probably one or the biggest expense you have in your P&L. And we'll see how you can think about optimizing this, not only in terms of cost, but also in terms of maybe flexibility or way to structure your people contracts. Last topic is recession. So people are talking about a downturn in the economy, and will basically, when we would make it like companies who are now understaffed, will they become suddenly overstaffed? That's the last topic we'll be covering. So in a nutshell, that's the topic covering today. Without further ado, let's get started for real. And I think it's Steve, who you're going to be starting, I think, with trying to explain to us what the causes are. Why are we having a labor shortage at the moment?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Thibault. Most people, I think that it's COVID related. You know, when you hear things on the news, you hear that. But if you look at the number of applicants available for a for a job right now, there's 0.5 applicants in the US per available opening that are unemployed. So unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. It's not COVID that's causing it, although that made it more acute in some respects. What's causing it is demography. And, the baby boomer generation is retiring. We don't have enough people to replace them in the workforce, and yet more jobs are open than ever before. And so that is the true cause, and it's not going away. That's the bad news. So it's not like COVID's going to go away and all of a sudden there's just going to be, a lot of potential talent in the marketplace. So this is going to be a challenge for a long, long time, creating, if you will, kind of a talent war. It's also a challenge within our industry, mostly because our industry itself is helping cause its own problem. And what I mean by that, in tight markets, if you're in a ski market, you're in a beach market, even a lake market or a mountain market where there is already a small amount of staff, suddenly, because of so many of those properties becoming short-term rentals, more and more so, housing is a massive issue. And so when we talk to our clients around the country, they all talk about the challenge that is caused in some respects by our own industry. So housing is a big issue. So I think that this is an issue that is not going away. It's something that you have to address and really focus on as you grow your company.
On mute, Thibault.
Thank you. I was thanking you for these points, and I was actually asking Luke whether he agreed with you.
Yeah, and I would just add that, clearly this is not a new problem. Hospitality in general, not just the short-term rentals or vacation rental operators, but also hotels have had issues with staffing for the longest time. I remember, very often this topic coming up within the big hotel circles in terms of what the future looks like for the hotel industry from the perspective of talent, right? And this is well before the pandemic. But I would say that the pandemic has clearly fundamentally transformed our economy in terms of people kind of prioritizing what their motivations are for work, especially as the costs have gone up. Just being able to live, the quote unquote American dream, whatever that is, in terms of, being able to afford a house, being able to, buy your partner that, that vacation or send your kids to school is becoming increasingly unobtainable. And with hospitality as kind of a comparatively lower paying sector compared to other sectors as people explore options, then that definitely creates a problem. Pile on top of that remote work in terms of having the global economy at your fingertips, so to speak, in terms of opportunity, also creates a lot of kind of churn and confusion, and kind of as people evaluate and assess where what their next big opportunity is going to be. So it's definitely structural, and across all of the points that Steve mentioned in terms of demographics. Just say that things are continuing to change, and we'll just need to adapt with the trends here. So.
Yes, thanks for sharing, Luke. And so you're saying in a way it is structural, and I think Kelly, you also have a viewpoint as well about the structure maybe of the industry impacting this whole labor shortage itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I just don't think that COVID was the cause, but it definitely has stepped up the intensity and the visibility to a huge scale. But I do think that the hospitality industry, because by its very nature, it's not stable. In most locations, you have these peaks and troughs in demand. that there will be a group of people or a selection of people who have decided to change their roles to find positions that are more stable. And that might well be outside of the hospitality industry. That doesn't necessarily explain tech, because that's not as unstable as the hospitality industry is. But certainly if you're in the an agency, that is going to be a problem. But I would say it does bring in good news from our perspective, because where there are shortages of labor, that's where technology can really step in. And I think previously there was a bit of a concern that the growing amount of technology was actually going to take away jobs, but actually there are less opportunities, there's less people there. So we need this technology that's actually going to help fill in those gaps. So I don't think this is temporary at all. I think this is going to be a growing problem that we're going to be talking about a lot, and we're going to have to look for solutions to this.
That's for sure, and Kelly. And I think Luke started talking about remote work and the impact. And I must say, when writing about remote work on a rental scale up, I was like, well, it's a positive thing for our industry because, for example, it's bringing maybe new guests, or it's good for the shoulder season. So to me, it was, it's a positive thing. And actually, when I was preparing this talk with you guys, I discovered that remote work could actually could have a negative effect when it comes to hiring people. So it's an interesting paradox I'd love to explore. And maybe Steve, can you get started with that, right? The impact of remote work on our industry. And you unmute this time, not me.
Sorry about that, I'm on mute. So I think it's both a positive and a negative in the sense that the positive attributes is post-COVID or during COVID, we were forced to go remote. Companies that, in the past, when we would encourage them to consider remote workers didn't want to do it, were forced to, and all of a sudden they realized, hey, this isn't so bad. And I think the positives aspects of that, it dramatically improves your applicant flow, opens up the quality of talent. When we go to market for remote roles, we get tremendously more applicants, obviously, than we do in the local market. And so that's great. Some of the jobs that were remote before, like, marketing and reservations or a vacation planner, continue to be the case, but even things like housekeeping management, we've seen done on a remote basis. So pretty much everything within the company, without those absolutely things that need to be hands-on, have been done remote during the pandemic. And that's helped companies identify and talent. So that's the positive. At the same time, where the challenge is that in a lot of the markets where we find vacation rentals, short-term rentals, where they're in those areas where there's just not a lot of talent to begin with, those individuals no longer have to work in their market themselves because they have all this opportunity outside of the market. So if you're in Hatteras Island, North Carolina, or Marathon Key, Florida, or a mountain market, Vail, Colorado, where you in the past maybe were more forced to work in the local market, now you can get a job pretty much anywhere, even outside of the industry, obviously. And so that's the challenge that we're seeing that remote is causing. Even though it on one hand solves some problems, it's creating new problems.
Solving problem and causing problem. It's interesting paradox. And by the way, if you have questions, if you're watching this and you have questions about remote work or any question really about staffing, hiring expenses, we have a Q&A session at the end of this hour. If you have questions straight away, feel free to write them down in a discussion section here, or just wait until the end and ask your question live as you want. Kelly, what's your view here again on remote work? Because I'm guessing as a tech company, remote work must have changed things for you guys as well.
Oh, I mean, huge changes. And this is such an interesting conversation because right now in the company, this is exactly what we're doing. We're looking at recruiting and we're looking at how remote working could work better for us than it currently does. There are just so many more opportunities. As you say, this pool of people is global rather than just being, this very localized selection of people. And we have seen tech companies, some of our colleagues in other PMS softwares, have really embraced this, and they have whole teams of people working in remote locations and doing it really, really well. So we've got opportunities here from my perspective to really learn from other tech companies to see how they're doing it and what's gone well for them. Tech roles by their very nature, they can be completed remotely, and there's so much more technology now that facilitates that. Thanks to COVID, we have got a lot more technology. We are a lot more capable. Company cultures are changing enormously to be able to accommodate this. How you do your training, how you do your, you cope with the fact that you're not going to be getting around, a water area and having a quick chat with your colleagues. But I think you're right. When you were talking earlier about problems, it does bring problems, and that's something we're really focusing on now, like how we deal with people outside of our country being able to access our details. There's a I don't say the word properly. There's a legal implication here that we need to take into account, and we need to think a lot about trust and responsibility and communication. And these are new for us because we didn't have that when we were working together in one little building. So our recruitment has really got to reflect what this change might be. And that's why it's so great to talk to you guys today, because I'm really learning a lot as well, and how we're going to do this.
And look, you're the ones who first touch upon remote work. And again, as we are joining here, we're talking about the paradox of remote work being, actually an opportunity to find new people, but as well maybe something hindering and making more difficult to find local talent, for example. And what's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, remote work isn't going anywhere. This is a force of nature that has been building up and for quite a while now. I mean, we can, we're sitting here right now working remotely, right? We have so many leaders from various organizations here collaborating and, working on solutions. And we can, go through the thought exercise of where would the industry be without remote work, right? And then you can apply that to your business and say, where would my business be without remote work? And do we want to stay there, right? Can we do it entirely in-house and local? And chances are that majority of, the operators here would say no. And that's going to be, increasingly more difficult to do just based on the evolution of the global economy. So, clearly there are some challenges in terms of, how to manage remote work effectively, get the same level of productivity out of your teams and efforts and budgets, doing it remotely versus in person. But it's just something that you have to get right with and do. It's not really an option at this point. It's not like a nice to have. Honestly, I think that it's just something that we all, are doing, and we'll need to, continue to do better into the future.
Thanks for sharing. And what's good here, we have, some of you work as property managers, or you work with property managers every day, or Kelly, you're from a tech company. And what's interesting, a big change is what I think when it comes to this smaller pool of talent is that it's become harder or even impossible to ask and find someone with a specific, with a deep experience, let's say, on one key software. Like, for example, if you're a property manager, you probably have a PMS, and there's so many different brands of PMSs. And usually you want people who know your PMS, but it's become just difficult to find anyone with that specific experience. So what advice could we give to people watching now and who need someone with some specific experience and can't find this person? And maybe, Kelly, do you want to get started? Because maybe it's something you're running into as well as a tech company.
Yeah, definitely. And this was the case before COVID. We just saw this seismic shift downwards in the volumes and the quality of local candidates for tech roles who had, this experience, very, very specific experience that we required. And that in part is down to the amount of local talent there is, but also because of the type of industry we're in, there's such a great variety now in the different skill sets and different pieces of software and that people actually will need to have. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The industry has grown, and that means that we need to be less specific. We as a tech company, we need to reconsider what specific skill sets we're looking for. And I think this applies across all sectors. I'd recommend, if someone was to ask me, I'd say employers need to just shift expectations in the recruitment process and think and apply more importance to recruiting people based on their softer skills, looking at their personality traits, their responsibility and their interest and their adaptability. Because in the end, we are going to be able to teach good people specific knowledge on, one channel or another channel, but we can't teach people really those professional traits. And that's going to be the breaker in the success of your company.
Maybe Luke, what's your view on this, on the fact that I'm guessing you have a lot of clients, partners asking you for specific, expertise on some software. So what do you tell them? How can they solve that?
Yeah, clearly recruitment is a big one, but I would say more importantly is what you do with the talent once you have them in the door. Documentation, training, communication, all of this stuff is clearly critical to the long-term success of your new hires, your new team members. We have partners that have 15 plus team members with us across all kinds of different functions, whether it's guest services, IT services, bookkeeping, owner relations. And we've just found that the companies that tend to be successful with us, grow with us, have great internal organization, know exactly what they need and to grow the business, and are able to communicate that with their team members. So yes, I think that finding people with specific skills is clearly important, but then again, it's as to Kelly's point, soft skills that have that are transferable, and indicate that there's some motivation for those individuals that come on board to actually be with your team, that are excited to learn the new technologies that you're applying, excited to learn about your customer base, your guests, interact with your guests, et cetera, et cetera. So soft skills, attitude, and then what happens internally in terms of once you get the talent through the doors is clearly recipe for success there, she said.
Thanks, Luke. I can imagine that a lot of people watching now, right, are like, okay, but where do I find these people? Even people who may not be qualified, may not have this deep expertise of some software, but have the right profile or soft skills, right? And I have business acquaintance in the US telling me that what they do as a property manager basically is that whenever they go to places like Home Depot and they find somebody they like, or they have, looks like very friendly, they basically give them a business card and say, just call me, because, it may be good for, other kind of jobs, like from welcoming staff to all kind of jobs at their own company. So that's let's say a way to do it by yourself. That's one possible way. I'm not sure how you can scale that, but maybe so on this point of identifying the right people, maybe Steve, you want to share different ways people can go about it?
Yeah, certainly. So when I look at vacation rental management companies across this country and the world, they have one thing in common when they're the market leader, It's not necessarily the technology they use, the business model, or the vision of the company. It's the people. The best companies in this industry have the best teams. And so it's really critical to get the right people in the right seats. And, you know, you can look at this and go, okay, so much of my effort is put into marketing for guests. So much of my effort is put into marketing for getting new homeowners. Most of the companies, when I meet with them, I find that when they say, how are they going to market to get people, they'll throw an ad on Indeed, and that's about it. You have to be a recruiter or you hire one, right? So you have two choices. You either become that and make that a part of your business model. Well, you guys have to do a lot of work. This is a really, really tough business because you got to do so many things really well. Part of why we launched our company was we wanted to help companies do that piece of it. So you can either use a company like ours or a traditional recruiting company. Those tend to be very expensive, or decide I'm going to focus on this myself. You were talking about soft skills and talking about, you know, your personality traits. One of the things that we do, and I've been doing in over 15 years now in my own businesses, and obviously now today in the recruiting business, is we use personality testing. And so even though we can't always find somebody that has learned or used a certain PMS, or maybe isn't even in the industry, we can find individuals who are actually designed for a particular role. And so we look at, you know, for example, reservations or housekeeping or maintenance or marketing or any of those roles, and say, what are the traits that we're looking for in those individuals that will make them the best fit for that particular role? So we do that with personality testing. We also do cognitive testing, which tells us how fast they learn and adapt to change. This industry is constantly in change, and you have to learn new tech that rolls out, new stuff that you guys do as a company. So we want people with a reasonably high cognitive ability to be able to do that. So those are some of the things that we do. We also have a multifaceted marketing approach, and we're not just you know, putting an ad up. We are directly reaching out to people. So that, you know, handing people a business card in Home Depot is one thing, but using a lot of different technology to reach out to people that are passive applicants. So many times when a company goes to hire, all they're getting are the people that are looking for a job. Well, a lot of times the best person for the role is already employed. They're not necessarily looking. You've got to put that opportunity in front of them. And that's what we focus on for our clients on. So being just as aggressive as you are in rental marketing and getting new, you know, contracts from a business development perspective, you need to do the same thing when you're attracting talent.
Thanks for sharing, Steve, how you do it, because as you said as well, as I said, so the leaving business card at Home Depot is a way to do it, but it's not systematic. It's the quality is probably not great. So it's really important for us to understand, for example, what you guys do at Better Talent, right? Because it's a way to do it. I think Luke as well, right? Obviously, Extenteam, you also do things. And again, the point for me here is not necessarily to you know, be selling you guys your company, right? But it's really to make people understand that there are solutions out there, different ways to do it, and services that can really help out and help you think differently. So Luke, how is it on your side? How do you help people maybe find the right talent?
Yep. Just approach this from the offshoring perspective in terms of talent that is not based in the United States, which can be, you know, clearly a great solution to some of those issues, but it has to be executed well. And that requires ultimately local market knowledge. Like our talent base is primarily Philippines and Mexico, and we've gotten very good at understanding that talent base, right? In terms of, you know, what to look for, red flags, not only during the matching process, but throughout the entire life cycle of that team member as they support our client partners. So just knowing the labor pools that you're operating in is clearly important. Doing your diligence in terms of the testing, the personality testing, as Steve said, is clearly very important. And then also, considering thirdly, just the actual sources of talent that you're tapping into? Which platforms are you looking at? Is it just local job recruitment job board? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Indeed? The plethora of different platforms that are out there to basically become that, tap into those, like, what are ultimately marketing channels for talent, but also thinking about your existing team member base, getting referrals from existing team members, right? A lot of our talent pool, our talent base is are people that are, waiting for roles that have been referred to by our internal network of people. And that's a great loyalty there, in terms of, bringing in, I mean, obviously not like favoritism, all that stuff, but still doing your diligence, but that also as a, potential source of leads in terms of talent is, asking your team members, like, do you know people, and then doing your diligence there. But yeah, so just, think global, think platforms, know your local labor markets, platforms, and then, working with existing team members to, hire from the bottom up within your group, but also, use some of that expertise to find people that are going to be a good fit for your company. You're on mute, Thibault.
It's my favorite thing to do. After 2 years, you would think I would know that, but anyway. So I'm turning to Kelly now, because in a sense with Steve and Luke, we saw how, going to a third company to get help on how to think about a strategy or a tactic or different ways to recruit people is important, but there's also things obviously people can do by themselves, right? So what are your tips here?
Okay, so let me come at this first of all from a tech perspective. So as a tech company, we have been thinking long term about how we will be recruiting people in the future. So we made some changes, first of all, to our office space. So we moved to a tech hub. So we would be surrounded by lots of different technical resources who would be able to help with recruitment or supply and so on. We've also joined a technical cluster, which is called Travel Tech Scotland. And our cluster works with all the other tech clusters across the globe. So we're already meeting up with, a cluster from Spain, for example, who came to visit us and share knowledge and advice. And so really just putting yourself in a network of like-minded companies will give you opportunities there to find the resource that you're looking for. So that was one step that we have been doing. We've also been looking at resources of people who are not necessarily working with experience in the market, but are ready to work. So looking at college fairs or university fairs for these kind of post-education employees, and working with them, which does require extra training, and you have to be willing to make that training commitment. But it does mean that it opens up just the number of people that are available to you. And the marketer in me can't be quiet, but the marketer in me would definitely recommend thinking about that communication process. So thinking about how you communicate with your existing staff. Are they happy? Are they not happy? What would make their jobs better? And applying that to your culture to make your culture a better place to work in, so that you can communicate that to potential employees, being super clear on the job roles that you have, super clear on the type of culture and type of company that you are. And that is going to make, well, it's not going to guarantee it, but you're certainly going to increase the potential of the employees that you recruit to stay with you longer term, because when ultimately recruitment isn't just about bringing in somebody and then you filled a gap. You know, it's that long-term plan to make sure you've got the resources in your company and you keep the good resources in your company. As Luke's point early on, you know, you're training these people. That's a big investment of your time. So you want to keep them there. So communicating with your staff is really key in that whole recruitment process. So that would be my top 3 things to think about and plan if you're looking to recruit. But obviously, you know, companies like Steve and Luke's would take a lot of that work off you.
Thanks for sharing these do-it-yourself tips in a way. And by the way, in the chat box, we have a lot of questions coming in, and actually people are answering each other. It's fantastic. I really make sure we keep the time at the end for Q&A. So I'm going to race through the next question, which is really about, you know, the expenses or how to set up. You know, thinking that, you know, staff is basically most of the time the biggest expense in the company, especially in a property management company, right? And still, I think Steve was sharing that with us when preparing this call, that a lot of companies don't really necessarily optimize this expense. It's a fascinating insight, and I guess, Steve, can you explain more on that, please?
Yeah, so when I look at a P&L, 50% or more of the profit and loss statement of a vacation rental company, sometimes upwards of 70%, is the staff. It's the payroll, it's all of the different components therein. And the vast majority of companies are really focused on optimizing things like their technical stack or their marketing plan and different pieces therein. And everybody has a business plan, but most don't have a people plan that's aligned with that business plan. So you have everybody has a financial projection, but they don't necessarily have a people projection aligned with that projection of growth. So if I'm going to add another 50 properties or 100 properties, what does that look like from a cost structure perspective on the people side? So it's really key to do that. And so we do that with our clients is build out that people plan. Most of the time, I'll get on with the company and ask them, do you have an organizational chart? Some do, some don't. A lot don't. Those that do really haven't built out that organizational chart. And I actually ask companies, even really small companies in startup mode, to build one. And if you're wearing multiple hats, go ahead and build out the full organizational chart and put your name on multiple hats, so that you can then identify who you should hire next to replace that part of what you're doing. And then a lot of times, you know, so many people, you go to a conference today, everybody walks around and we talk about our tech stack. You know, everybody on this call right now has a technical stack and they talk about the different components therein. It's very interesting to me. I have a technology background. I love it, right? And we have a extensive tech stack ourselves. However, I like to talk about the people stack. And, you know, for example, we partner with Extenteam, Luke's company, because that's one component of the people stack. You have full-time employees, you have part-time employees, you have outsourced employees, outsourced staff. You might even have consultants that you pull in for different components. And today we really want to optimize our spend on the talent component. And it's not just full-time employees. When we work with a client, we're not trying to say, hey, you should just fill up your budget with full-time employees, for example. We want to optimize your talent so that we get the best return on investment across all of the different components therein. And then last but not least, really focusing on an employer brand is critical. So many companies don't look at Glassdoor reviews, for example, or don't have an about us page that really speaks to the employee. They're really, you know, tailoring all their marketing to guests and homeowners. Totally get that. Did it for 20 years, grew the business that way. I understand it, but there is the piece of your brand that is focused on the team. And like I said before, the companies that are leading in markets have the best teams. So you really need to think about that employer brand. We actually partner with one of the top employer brand consultants in the nation, include that in what we do, because we feel that strongly about that employer brand. So I think that's a key piece as well.
Thanks for sharing that, Steve. And Kelly, what's your view here? How can people optimize their expenses, maybe looking at what they already have in a way?
Yeah, so this is something I love doing, looking at, you know, your existing resources and trying to work out, well, what can you do with the resources that you have right here, right now? And so I would focus my answer on 2 different sides. One is upskilling and the other is tech, because I come from tech. So upskilling or cross-skilling your team means having clear communication to identify those people in your team who are interested in taking on new responsibilities or changing responsibilities. And not everybody's going to want to do that, and that's absolutely fine. But that might also be something that you might want to consider for future recruitment, that you have people as well who are interested in progressing and changing and so on. And the second point is thinking about leveraging tech, so enabling you to do more with what you have. And there's so many tech solutions that are entering this space that are brilliant at providing support for that resource gap that you have. And again, this is communication. It's working with your team to identify the tasks and the activities that are most resource intensive, and then looking for the tech solutions or changing processes that means that you can reduce that resource output that can be then placed elsewhere to do something more productive. And there's, you know, great solutions out there now for automating booking processes and checking in processes and everything else that will be able to help. So the place to start is it's clear collaboration, clear communication with your team to really understand what you have, what you need to provide, and then what's going to help you bridge that gap, whether it's your team changing or your technology changing, but something that's going to help you achieve what your goals are.
Thank you, Kelly. And for the sake of leaving room for the Q&A, because I see there's really like at least already 4 great questions there. My last question, and if each of you can then try to answer this like in 1 or 2 sentences, perfect. Last question is about the downturn, right? We're hearing a lot about recession coming, right? And you know, I was like on my mind, well, maybe property management companies and even tech companies will go from understaffed to overstaffed in a few weeks, right? So what's your view on that, each of you? Steve, you want to get started?
Well, here's the good news. COVID really did have a massive impact on our industry, and the fact that it raised the awareness of the industry. More people are utilizing vacation rentals than ever before. And I've been through several recessions in my 25 years in this industry. And I will tell you, back in 08, I was really concerned when everything fell apart the last quarter of 08 going into 09. And a good friend of mine, Dr. Peter Yesowich, always would say, and he said to me, Steve, Americans consider travel a birthright. They changed during a recession, but they continued to travel. We saw this with COVID. They didn't go overseas. They traveled domestically. It was a big push. More people know about vacation rentals than ever before. In 2009, worst recession of our lifetimes, way worse than whatever I think we're getting ready to go through. I was down 10% as a company. 2010 was a record year. What I will tell you is if we do see a recession right now and people do pull back on their hiring, I would be aggressive in going and finding really great talent during that period, because it's going to go right back pretty quickly to where talent is going to be very hard to find. So look at this as an opportunity, not necessarily a big threat from that perspective. Obviously, you got to keep your business afloat. You got to be really focused on the bottom line, but it is an opportunity, not necessarily negative. And our industry has historically done really well during recessions.
Thank you, Steve. Kelly, what do you think about this?
So I'm inclined to agree. I don't think that we're going to have major problems in the vacation rental industry, whether you're in the tech part of it or you're an agency or some other subsidiary company. You know, there are massive layoffs happening in other tech companies outside of our industry. And I think it's making people a little bit nervous, and we're certainly paying attention. And they are citing the impending recession as the reason. But I just don't see that applying here. I mean, during COVID, there was so much domestic travel, and so many property managers did well. You know, some of our clients, they had the best years that they've ever had because of all the domestic travel. And I think that's going to be the case. You know, if and when a recession comes, that guests will still want to travel. So even if you are currently understaffed, I don't see you being overstaffed within the next 6 months when the recession, if it comes. And so I think it's a positive light for us.
So it's positive for the industry, but it's still not solving the whole staffing issue. So it's two-edged swords again. And look, what's your view finally on this recession, impact of the future recession?
Yeah, I would definitely echo Kelly's and Steve's points with just a couple of caveats. I mean, clearly the U.S. workforce, specifically within the accommodations subsector, has yet to recover from the pandemic. As of June, we're still down 16% in terms of total number of workers within the accommodation space. On that same note, inflation, wage inflation has gone up nearly 25% since 2019 in terms of U.S. wages across the entire accommodations subsector. So less workforce, more expensive workforce is going to fundamentally, impact your business, recession and no recession. And then I would just add that, it's very relative, recession in terms of how economists measure recession continues to evolve. Unemployment numbers are still very low. But I would add that, just be careful, just pay attention to your market and your brand and how that's going to be affected longer term. The industry has come off from a very strong couple of years during COVID, but things are changing, right? More people are traveling to the cities where before, or internationally, right? So the demand, is starting to come back to more realistic 2019 levels. But again, it's just adjusting expectations and, thinking about it from a local perspective and, what that means for your hiring strategy. Over hiring, just stay flexible and just consider all the various options, I guess.
And Luke just talked about wage inflation, and if we go to a Q&A time now, and if the speakers, Steve, Kelly, and Luke could go to the discussion part of Zoom, the discussion site, so you can read the questions ahead so that you can get ready and let me know who wants to answer. But the first question was from Heather. Basically, what she's saying that she's in Utah, in Park City, and what she finds out is like, she's asking how to solve the gap between the current staffing pool is asking for pay, what they're asking for pay versus what the job should be paying, right? You have the whole cost versus, how much you can charge and how much you can pay people. How are you solving this? Because you're saying, for example, there, obviously it's a mountain destination, the staff has to drive, so it's not always very pleasant to drive in the winter. So how do you solve that gap between what you have to pay people and what you should be paying to, make up for the cost? Who can take it?
I can take that one. And Park City is an example of one of those markets that's really tight. Obviously you have Salt Lake 30 minutes away, so you do have a talent pool that's reasonably close. But I would just say that you have to be super aggressive in getting in front of as many people as you possibly can. Thibault talked about, going into the Home Depot. We actually make those business cards for our clients where it says, you're awesome, we should talk, literally specific with a jobs board there. So getting in front of as many people as possible so that you have a funnel of people that you can get to. From a cost perspective, salaries have gone up, wages have gone up. It is more challenging than it's ever been in that regard. You have to come up with unique concepts. I've seen some companies, for example, give gas cards on a monthly basis to offset the cost of fuel for that travel time that they have on, offset of just doing straight salary. So it's not necessarily forever type of scenario. So coming up with unique payment ways, so bonus structures where their total on target earnings you can put in a job ad is higher than, for example, just an hourly wage that you might put on an ad. So the way that you describe their compensation package and develop that out is really key. The other thing is, if you do not have a referral program today, I would highly recommend that you have a referral program across your staff, because the reality is, yes, people are very concerned about cost, but they really want to work for great companies. So if you work on that employer brand, focus on making sure that people look at it and go, this is one of the best places to work. It's not just money that people come to work for. They want to come work for a great company where there's good people working together. And if your staff is telling people about your company, that's really going to work for those frontline roles. And that's what we see as very, very effective, is developing out a referral program. When I ask, companies, do you have a referral program? They'll say yes. I ask their employees and they don't even know about it. So you definitely have to get that referral program in front of your team on a regular basis to make sure that they are very well aware of it. And you should pay them a bonus if that person stays past 90 days, as an example. So
thank you, Steve. I think the next question is for Luke, right? So asking about the onboarding process for new hires that you have based in Manila in Mexico. How's that happening?
Thanks for that. It's relatively seamless in terms of the technology. Our team members use all of the systems that you're using. So the onboarding is relatively smooth there from a technical perspective. In terms of training, a lot of it depends on your documentation, and clearly every vacation rental business is a little bit different. It's a very fragmented industry, right? So it's almost impossible to find somebody with perfect experience that's going to come in seamlessly into your group. So there's going to be some training involved, but we help you through that process. In terms of working with our internal teams. And I'd say that the first 30 days are absolutely critical in terms of just setting a good note, a good tone with not just with us, but just in general. When you're bringing on a new individual, just getting them pumped for the role, getting them excited about your company, having the communication protocols in place so that they have the support that they need to ultimately succeed in their job and to feel proud of the work that they're doing, right? So, onboarding is a continuous process that just has to require just good communication, monitoring, open book policy, and setting good expectations from the beginning, right? So it's not like you come in and you have a few tasks here and then all of a sudden 2 months from now you're doing something that's completely outside of the scope of your original job description or role. So just keeping that consistency is very, very, very important. The way that we look at it is kind of the 80-20 rule, where we have your primary roles are kind of 80% of what you do, and then on top of that, maybe 20% of what you do might be outside of that role, within reason, of course, in terms of your expertise. But if it's a reservationist role, 80% of that time would be working with guests and across the different channels. But what else can you apply as the season and the company develops to kind of mix it up, make it a fun job, but also very clear in terms of what's expected.
Thank you, Luke. I think the next question is actually for Kelly, right? We have here James. He's a vacation rental owner, but as well he's building an automation chatbot solution for the industry, and he's asking what pain points should he keep in mind to make sure that his product service is helping bridge the gap in staffing talent shortages. No, think of that, Kelly.
Yeah, so I'm just having a look at the question. So
go ahead.
I would be looking at James actually speaking directly with your audience and saying, well, what are their problems, and ask them directly, because each company is going to have some very specific problems, but there will be a general kind of flow throughout them. But you can see, for example, that there are you know, an awful lot of repeat questions that people are having to deal with, that they don't have resource 24 hours to be able to answer some of the questions, and yet guests have these expectations that there is going to be a 24-hour service, and someone will reply to them straight away. So I would be looking realistically at what guest expectations are, as well as the staffing and talent shortages of companies, and trying to bridge the two of them together when you're actually contacting the property managers.
Thanks, Kelly. And the last question of the day, because we were going slightly over, thanks for your patience, is somebody sharing experience from the UK, actually, saying that what's works for them, it's Anthony, it's hiring people on the spot hire, right? Or people within 24 hours, you know, skipping, you know, long recruitment process, and even getting people without any experience. But he's still wondering what to do, because there's because of Brexit, for example, there's a very limited talent pool. So he's really asking how to keep jobs attractive when local talent is already limited as it is. Any tip? Who wants to take the last question, right? How to make keep the jobs attractive in this very limited talent pool? Is think of cleaners, for example.
You know, that's quite an interesting question. Like, I would go back to actually Steve's point earlier on. People are there for more than money. So thinking about what is it for your existing pool of employees, what makes them happy? What is it about your culture that they really like working for your company? And then building on that to make the role, you know, more attractive for other people to come in. I remember watching a podcast, it wasn't that long ago, and it was talking about the type of people that will apply for your roles as well. And there was some crazy statistic, you know, women will only apply for roles if they meet 100% of the qualifications, whereas men will apply if they've got roughly 60%. Now, thinking about that, when you're actually recruiting people who are going to fill in this gap that you have, you know, thinking about how you communicate that you would like people to apply, even if they don't have 100% of the qualifications, making people more confident that they can work with you and work in your company and apply for this particular role. Now, that won't necessarily be the same for cleaning, but you know, there's a number of different positions where somebody might not necessarily have all the technical skills, but you know, they've got the soft skills, and there's a lot of other features there. So I would be looking first and foremost at your satisfaction in your existing company, why it is they work with you, and also thinking about how you recruit people and actually encouraging more people to recruit, whether, you know, just because they're women, they should be applying as well.
Thank you, Kay, for sharing that. So we're a bit over time, so thank you all for attending. Thank you to the speakers. And I would love each of you speakers, let us know maybe how can people contact you, know more about your company if they want to take action now. Maybe getting started with Steve. How can people reach out?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's a very easy way to do it, or steve@bettertalent.com. Our website's bettertalent.com as well. So any of those ways would be great.
Thanks. How about you, Kelly?
So I live in LinkedIn, so you'll find me there most days. And if you're looking for more specifics about Bookster, you go to our website, Bookster HQ. And again, you'll find us through LinkedIn for that as well.
Cool. How about you, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn. You can also reach me at luke@extenteam.com. Would love to learn more about how you do things at your group. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you, Steve, Luke, and Kelly for being speakers today, for Yuvika for putting this together. You will be getting, again, there are special offers from our speakers, and thank you again for that. You'll be getting a follow-up email with the actual ways to redeem these offers, as well as a link to a recording of this session. I know some of you joined right in the middle, so you get a whole recording. Thank you all again for attending. Thank you for preparing the meeting for people who prepared it with me, and I wish you a great day or great evening wherever you are. Thank you all.
Thank you
So much.
Take care.
Thank you.